previous module, we learned how to identify the intervals between the notes of the scale. In this module, we'll take this a step further and learn how to fully and correctly name some of these intervals. In order to complete this module, you'll need to have a solid grasp of the work covered in Module 13. If you are uncertain of anything, please return to the notes in the video or come and see me in person so that I can assist you. If we look at these intervals, we can identify them as a unison, a fourth, a fifth, and an octave. These are the four most important intervals in a scale, and we label them as perfect intervals: a perfect unison, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, and a perfect octave. We can, however, only do this if these notes fit into the major scale of the bottom note. We know that the C major scale does not have any sharps or flats in its key signature. So, because all of the top notes are natural notes, we can see that they fit into the scale, and my perfect labels are correct. If, however, I were to have an F sharp as the top note of my interval, I would have a problem. This F sharp does not fit into my C major scale, so I can't label this as a perfect fourth. If I encounter unisons, fourths, fifths, or octaves that do not fit into my major scale, I label them either as augmented or diminished intervals. Augmented means bigger, while diminished means smaller. If I look at the interval of C to F sharp, I can see that this is a fourth by counting the C as number 1 and then counting up to the F, which is number 4. If I were to look at the perfect fourth interval of a C to F on the keyboard and move that F natural up to an F sharp, I can see that I have made my interval slightly wider or bigger. This means that I have augmented my interval and I label it as an augmented fourth. Similarly, if I look at the distance between G and D flat, I can work out the full name of this interval by counting the distance between the bottom note and the top note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This interval is a fifth, but when I look at the major scale of my bottom note, the G major scale, I can see that there is no D flat in the scale. The perfect fifth would be G to D, and when I transfer this interval to the keyboard and then change the D to a D flat, I can see that I have made my interval smaller or diminished. Therefore, the interval between G and D flat is called a diminished fifth. If we have a look at our accidentals, we can see which ones make an interval bigger or augmented, or smaller or diminished. If I begin with a natural note, a sharp sign will augment the interval, while a flat sign will diminish the interval. Sharps and flats do not always point towards augmented or diminished intervals though. I can see this when I work out the interval between F and B. If I count the notes starting with F as 1, I can see that I have an interval of a fourth. Both of these notes are naturals, so I could be fooled into thinking that they form a perfect interval. But when I check this interval against my F major scale, I can see that I have a problem. There is no B in an F major scale, only a B flat. Therefore, this B does not fit into my scale and does not form a perfect fourth. If I transfer my perfect interval onto the keyboard and then see what happens when I change the B flat into a B natural, I can see that my interval becomes bigger or augmented. Therefore, the interval between an F and a B is an augmented fourth. Please practice labeling the intervals in the accompanying notes, and feel free to come and see me if you need any help with this section of work.